We have a tweet from Eric Swalwell, and this might be one of the funniest bits I've ever seen. This makes great. Saturday Night Live look like, amateur improv hour at a local college comedy club. MAGA Republicans want women arrested for having an abortion. This is what that looks like. All right, let's play the video. It's got 2.5 million views as of 24 hours ago. I hope you guys are ready to enjoy this. Oh wait, I gotta fix the audio. I always do that because before the show we switch the output.
Yeah.
All right, there it is. There it is.
You're weird.
He is weird, but cute.
Gross.
Mary Anderson,
Yes.
I have a warrant for your arrest.
Arrest for what?
Penal Code 243 violation. Unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
You gotta be kidding me.
That is my personal business.
That's for the courts to decide, ma'am. Your medical records have been subpoenaed, and Dr. Landry's already in custody.
No, my God, you can't just.
You will have to submit to a physical examination.
What? Why who?
No one's touching me.
Sir, get that!
Pull their guns out.
Ma'am, turn around.
Oh my God.
Put your hands behind your back. Now.
Why is this happening? Love you, honey bear.
The acting, wow.
We're just enforcing the law here.
Elections have consequences. Vote Democrat on November 8th. Stop Republicans from criminalizing abortion everywhere.
Oh, there's more.
Protect women's rights and freedom.
Please don't do this.
Eric Swalwell. You know what I love? Like in the beginning, when he's doing like near the baby's mouth, and then the wife is like, he's cute, and the kid's like, she's gross. I was thinking like, the reason why they can't get the acting right on what a family looks like is because these people don't have families.
Yeah.
So they're just like, I think this is what it looks like. I also want to point out that the first reply you can see is from Adrienne Curry. Shout out. People cannot afford food, gas, or even their own homes, and this is your strategy? LOL. No, seriously, like the production value is so bad. Yo, the cops, if they ever did show, would be like, man, we have a warrant for your arrests. Come with me. They wouldn't be like, you're going to get a medical exam. We've arrested your doctor. They wouldn't say any of those things. They'd say you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can be used against you in a court of law. Please place your hands behind your back. And that would be it. And everyone would, the husband would be like, oh, what's going on? And then she'd get arrested. That's about it.
Would you be arresting people, Emin?
Yeah.
So I look at it like, okay, there's a little baby right there, eating, and what if they decided they were going to kill that little baby? Then wouldn't it be justified?
Well, that's her personal business.
Well, yeah, I guess that between them two, right? Like, but that to me, that's how I view it. And the more I look into abortion and the more I look into really what it is murdering babies. That's what it is. And so, it should be enforced.
Do you think from the point of conception at any point, abortion should be made illegal, penalty, prison?
I believe that life begins at conception. I believe that is the correct point in which you would determine it a life, and then that the state's job is to protect it.
Should the mother go to prison as well as the doctor, like in this video from Eric Swalwell?
It's a sad, unfortunate thing, and it's going to be very difficult to try to get like society to switch their minds on this, that it's not okay to kill a baby. And it's going to be hard. I think we've got to be somewhat, I hate saying this, but there's a transition that you have to go through, but it is not okay to kill babies. I mean, if you like the contrast of this, I guess, because this really isn't that great a production, but just go and watch. I mean, it's terrible to watch, but just go watch a video of an abortion.
I know what you need to do. You need to make your own version of this, but like the mom has like a mustache, she's twirling, like, I'm going to kill this baby. And then the husband's like, yes. But no, I mean, if that's the case, a lot of conservatives say they would never go as far as arresting the mother for this. It's the provider who kills the baby who would be punished, not the mother. But you're saying you think the mother is involved.
Well, I mean, if justice was to be served, it's those who had the intent to kill.
What about exceptions? Do you think there should be exceptions?
So I think conception should be termed, because there is where you have where the baby gets, or gets in the I'm trying to get in the fallopian tube, and that
Ectopic pregnancies.
Yeah, there you go. That's the term. And that will kill a mother.
But I think those are considered non-viable as it is, and so those aren't. At least for a long time, that wasn't considered an abortion.
And then in vitro is another thing, like, because they're actually taking the sperm and the egg out, and they're fertilizing it, if you will, and then they're putting it. And so some people are like, well, that's conceptionist too. So I think that it needs to be determined, or as part of the definition must be that it's in the womb.
There's challenges here, because I understand what you're saying. And I lean more on the traditional pro-choice side. The issue I take with it, I also view as a libertarian perspective, in that there are circumstances. There's challenges here, I'll admit. So let me walk through this. There are circumstances where, if a woman does have a legitimate risk or problem with the pregnancy, how do you get through that effectively? Does the state have to get involved and issue a permit to allow it to happen? I mean, these things can become overwhelmingly complicated, and then what is an actual health matter for the mother is now an issue of the state and certification or permitting and stuff like that. I have an issue with that.
Well, so
I do understand, though, just to walk through this. I think abortion is wrong. I think too many women today are using it as contraception. I think the mainstream left, the modern left, is pro-abortion, and that makes there's no middle ground for how we actually deal with an extremely complicated, and let's be real, there is no middle ground. I mean, you either are going to create a circumstance where women will get elective abortions as birth control, even though we think it's wrong, or you'll penalize the woman or arrest the doctor or the woman.
So and that's why, I intend on declaring life begins at conception, and making that the point, because ultimately it's a determination of when life begins, because then you have to say, well, then it's not okay to take the life, right? I mean, if life begins at this point, then it's not okay to take the life. Is it, we all agree that after the baby is born, it's not okay to take their life, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't believe that's when life begins. I believe that it begins at conception. And so therefore the state's job is to protect that life. And ultimately, when it comes down to like a court proceeding or a trial or a prosecution, it comes down to intent.
What about in the case of rape?
So I'll admit to you that I did at one time believe that should be an exception. But I do not believe that there is a right way to take a life.
I hear what you're saying. I understand the moral position. The challenge I have in this circumstance, let me pause first, because people get heated on this one. Well, let me just say,
we'll get through this.
We'll get through it.
We'll get through it.
A woman who, through no fault of her own, is raped and forced into carrying a baby. She was completely responsible in every right and was victimized. I don't see how the state can determine that you have to provide your body to another living person. Now, I do understand it is extremely rare that this is the case in terms of abortion. This is the problem I have. 92% of abortion is elective or no reason given, just contraception, contraceptive abortions.
Non-medical.
That to me is insane. Mm-hmm. But the issue I run into is the government being like, now I know you were victimized, but we, the state, have determined your body and blood now must be shared with another person.
So this is the reality of it, though. The reality of it is those who get an abortion suffer more emotionally and many other ways because they got an abortion versus those who actually keep the baby. They may give it up for adoption, whatever, but they are healed more by going through that pregnancy and having that baby. It's difficult.
Yeah, but that's not a legal or moral argument. I mean, that I can't understand. I can't understand that argument. I mean, if there's a woman who says the government will not force me to carry my rapist's child, like, you might think she'd be better off. But if she's saying if she's going to kill herself,
again,
I know they're rare.
It's the right of that child to live. That's where it becomes difficult, right? Because we're talking about a life here,
That's
and
why
we're saying that
there's no middle.
just because of the circumstance that you were, if you were created, if you will, now because of that circumstance, we're going to take your life, and that I don't agree with that. I think that the better way is to side with life. That's where I end up.
Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Tunes made the point. I believe this was the point you made, Seamus. So if I'm wrong, forgive me. But he said the detriment to the female in this scenario is less than the detriment to taking the life.
Yeah.
So his point was basically, you know what, this woman might now have to suffer for another 9 months, but suffering for 9 months is not nearly as bad as terminating the life of another being. I still run into this. I don't like government, and I don't like that idea. But I certainly understand.
Believe me, I'm right there with you, and
it's tough, huh?
But man, when you watch, which is terrible, I've never been able to watch a video to the end with it when it comes to abortion. I can't.
Well, this is
and so then that's what changed my mind. That's what changed my mind.
If a woman has a miscarriage, do you think there should be an investigation?
No, that's a natural thing that happens.
But what if she jumps on the ground and kills the baby and then calls it a miscarriage?
If there was intent, that's what all crimes are based upon, intent. Like if you intentionally tried to kill the baby, then the state would probably have some jurisdiction there. But
so how would they know unless they investigate?
Yeah, but it's just like any other crime. How do you know unless you investigate? I mean,
and they often just don't investigate.
We're not talking about
talking about precedent.
We're not talking about creating an entire system with all these exceptions and everything. We're talking about we already have murder laws. We already have these laws, and they're based upon intent, and basically saying that life begins at conception, and so the state's duty is to protect that life.
Well, not all life. You kill mosquitoes, but you're talking about humans or people. Persons, and the argument is living tissue isn't necessarily a person. So like a sperm isn't a person, an egg isn't a person, a sperm egg combo isn't necessarily a person in my opinion, until it's thinking and has feelings and emotions and has a sense of self. Other than that, it's just like growing tissue.
Yeah, but with that, I agree. That's the argument of when life begins, right? But I mean, I have 6 children, and a newborn is not very aware of themselves.
Not when life begins. Life begins, sperm is alive, eggs are alive. It's always living stuff. But whether or not it's a person, whether or not it's murder depends on if it's a person. Because if you kill a cow, you're not murdering it.
Well, conception is where, the sperm and the egg come together and they begin to grow as one, if you will. And I believe that that's when life begins. As far as I get, but I don't want to get into semantics,
Yeah,
I think life begins. It's always living. Your sperm is living. But it's not about killing life. I don't think that's the
just
argument.
want to say, personally, I'm pro-life, but I'm extremely skeptical of giving police officers more reasons to arrest people. How would you handle it as a governor? What would be a punishment? What would you do to a woman?
Well, we already have murder laws.
Right.
So that's life. That's a life sentence.
No, not always.
Predominantly,
depending on the severity of the charge, the degree. There's 3rd degree. I think there's even 4th degree in some states.
Right.
And the laws, the laws are there for as a deterrent, right? I mean, that's really what they're there for. They're a deterrent, and so this would be a deterrent for people. The
problem is if you don't enforce laws, no one takes them seriously, and it wouldn't just be a deterrent if you're enforcing.
Well, I think there's actually a much simpler breakdown of what happens. The end result is abortion clinics just cease to exist. The overall the amount of abortions that happen will drop to a ridiculously low amount. They'll still happen. The state probably won't be arresting and prosecuting doctors because they'll be done in secret. And there's a lot of problems with that the left brings up. But in reality, as much as the left wants to create the scenario where the police show up and they're like, your doctor's been arrested, that probably will never happen. Extremely rare. Something that people need to understand is that People can go online and admit to committing serious crimes and post the evidence, and the government still doesn't go after them. The reality to this life, to this country, is that they do not want you in jail. First of all, we all know what's going on with the woke left in these big cities, releasing people like crazy.
Yeah.
But there's overcrowding. The courts don't want to deal with it. Look, I once got arrested for skateboarding, and the judge was pissed. I show up for court, and he puts his glasses on, he looks at it, and he's like, what? He's like, come on, my docket's full already, and you get out of my courtroom. So what really happens with these laws is my prediction on if they actually did criminalize abortion nationwide as like a murder charge, Planned Parenthood clinics would just cease to exist, and it would not be that big of an issue.
But you'd see miscarriages spike.
Well, I think
I don't think so.
Lots
I
of
really don't think
miscarriages.
so.
Oh yeah.
I think
babies keep dying,
The
man.
whole
That's
culture's
the
going to
nature.
shift. Everyone's going to stop having sex like it's not a big deal. It's going to be a very, very different thing from the ground up. And
Just make one law and that'll change
Right.
entire.
I think people will realize
all of
you
culture
can't
will
do that.
It will have a
I'm
massive
joking, by
impact.
the way.
I mean, look at there are questions about when what can make culture shift. For one, the entirety of this country just all of a sudden decided that the marijuana laws didn't matter, and people were just going about breaking the law and making movies about how funny it was. So I'm not convinced outright the culture would change, but Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics would cease to exist overnight if there was a nationwide ban.
Yeah.
And of course, many of the left and pro-choice, they freak out about that idea. That's a reality. There will still be it's not going to be back alleys with coat hangers. It's going to be private underground facilities.
It'll be chemicals. They'll mail
Probably,
stuff.
yep.
The people
That's
will
right.
send stuff in the mail, little pills. You take it. There's no trace of it. There's going to be a huge spike in miscarriages.
No,
And
there's
people,
not.
Are they just going to pretend like they're not doing secret abortions when they're having
And
miscarriages?
Ian, what you misunderstand is
come on.
A spike in miscarriages requires the women to report the miscarriages are happening.
Yeah.
So if you
unreported stuff.
So if you mean women, so miscarriages won't spike because women will be inducing abortion and not telling anybody. So abortions will go down. Some abortions will remain. Miscarriages won't because women are not going to report their illegal abortions.
But how is that stopping the ethics of killing the baby?
Well,
that doesn't change things.
One is the state's not paying for it, and two is there is a law there in place. It's a moral thing as
stops
well.
elective abortion. I mean,
exactly.
it stops the overwhelming majority of elective abortions. That's
a lot of that stuff is safer than taking pills and killing the
Okay,
kid
but
in
hold on.
utero.
Look. You're getting me to argue for him now.
To say that you don't think abortions would or the miscarriages would spike is like, I mean, think outside the box on this one.
Let me walk you through this again. A woman who has who induces an abortion illegally would not report it, right?
I don't know. I don't know how that
So
works.
she would go
I
to
don't
the
know.
cops and be like, "I broke the law. Arrest me."
Well, is it known that she's pregnant? Do her neighbors know? They're like, she was pregnant a week ago.
How would they know if she's
whisper? If you're, and then the government's like, "We'll pay."
You're making up scenarios.
Bring the law into
Also,
this,
guys,
man.
it's important to note here: Dave Portnoy is going to be really pissed if this goes through. And then number two,
he's like, "What?"
A lot of people will go to Canada and to Mexico. Like already, a lot of Mexicans, like a lot of Americans, are already going for their health care as well.
Okay.
So that's another component.
So
to
the
it.
interesting thing is on the other side of this, I want to completely deregulate the medical industry.
Interesting.
And but why is abortion different? Because it's life. And if there was one thing that the state is supposed to do, it is supposed to protect life. And so I lean very heavily on the libertarian side. Absolutely.
So
This is-
but not with abortion.
I think there's an argument Ben Shapiro has made as well that if you're libertarian and you believe in very limited government, there is one thing that most people believe government should do, and it's protect life.
That's right.
But then it's the war machine. Like, it's the killer. Government's main job is to protect life, but it's also to kill and to make murder legal so that they can kill.
No, that's not something libertarians agree with. My point is
That's
making
just
is
the
that
government's function.
Libertarians are like the government should protect life, not be actively taking it. And most libertarians, I think, overwhelming majority, are anti-war and don't want the U.S. involved in the killing and military-industrial complex.
I'm raising my hand for that. I mean, absolutely.
So, like, if the government's going to protect the life of a baby by destroying the life of a mother, I just don't see the protection racket.
Hold on.
What's going on?
We got to stop right there. The point that I brought up, that I reiterated for Seamus, is the mother will live and the baby will live, or the baby dies and the mother will live. You see the issue?
Yeah, you're talking about like no abortion versus abortion?
Right. In an abortion, someone dies, someone lives. With no abortion, the mother suffers for an extended period, assuming the mother is suffering, and then the baby is born, but both live. That's the moral argument that Seamus made to me. I'm not saying I agree with
I
this
think
stuff.
the idea that
there's an
more
issue
life
with-
is better is kind of erroneous too, because its quality of life is super important.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but you don't take life just because you're not going to have good quality. That's not justification to take.
I'll just shout out Seamus again. He made a cartoon where there's a poor kid sitting on his bed and he's like malnourished and everything's grainy and gross. And Democrat man shows up, and then he's like, "Help, Democrat man! I'm hungry and poor." And he goes, "I'll save you," and then disappears and then reappears instantly. And then he goes, "What did you do?" And he goes, "I went back 12 years to convince your mother to get an abortion." And then the kid goes, "What? No!" And then just disappears. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.